Hello and welcome to the Trust Driven Podcast. Today is Trivia Day, where we strive to make medical communication research not just informational, but fun. We have our winner from last week coming back, Dr. Dwayne Golbek. He is a chiropractor in Catoosa, Oklahoma. We also have Maria Naidig. She is a registered nurse and patient advocate in Columbus, Georgia. And Dr. Amanda Satterlee. She is a chiropractic radiologist in Las Vegas, Nevada. Any of our guests have any questions today? Good. We feeling awesome?
Good.
I have some rewind articles for you guys today. So we're going back in time a little bit for some of these. But I will give you your first question. It comes from an article titled Recognizing and Adjusting to Barriers in Doctor-Patient Communication. It's by T.E. Quill, and it was published in the Annals of Internal Medicine from 1989. It's an oldie but goodie, okay?
Okay.
Your question here on this first one is, what is a consequence of not recognizing a physician-patient communication barrier? So A, it limits the therapeutic potential of the doctor-patient relationship. B, it increased trust in the provider. Or C, there was no consequence. Treatment continued as usual. So your first question there is like, what do we mean by barrier? And I'm not fully going to give you that answer because it could mean a lot of things. Why, you're having difficulty communicating with the patient. Guys, got about 15 seconds. Everybody's rereading the question there.
That's quite, kind of range with the answer.
All right, let's see what you guys came up with. So what is a consequence of not recognizing a physician-patient communication barrier? So I see Dwayne's got an A, Amanda's got an A, and Maria's got an A. And you guys will be correct. So by not recognizing a communication barrier, we're going to limit the therapeutic potential of the relationship. And we should be able to notice when something is a barrier in this communication. And we should address it and confront it. Essentially, like a good question here is the doctor saying something like, I'm sensing you're unhappy with the direction I'm going, with your care that I'm proposing. Why is that? Is there something that you can help me understand or something I can help you understand? So kind of seeing in that situation if you're proposing a treatment and the patient isn't understanding you, or you've totally missed the mark, being able to kind of step outside your ego and recognize that the patient's not following. How do we get on the same page?
Yeah, this is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like the initial thing was like communication barrier, meaning like language. I was like, oh yeah, sometimes there's that, but which could actually even add another layer. Odd stuff, right? So, but yeah, what you're saying makes absolute sense because they're already going to put a wall up if they're like, he wasn't even, listening or doesn't get what I said my goal is.
Mm-hmm.
It could also be a barrier from the patient, because if you're like you're saying it, if the patient isn't feeling heard or understood, I mean, they're not going to say anything to the provider about it, but they're going to tell their advocate, number one, if they have one, family and friends, it's not going to end very well. And usually when there's a discrepancy with the provider, they're not going to tell the provider, and the provider's just going to think that everything is fine unless it's not. And really behind the scenes, they could just be looking to take their services, their insurance, their care somewhere else where they feel that they're going to be heard. And a lot of the patients that I have that come to me, they just that's all that they want. They just want to be heard. They want, their concerns to be voiced and heard. And it really makes all the difference.
Awesome. And I feel like as a doctor, you can give better care if you're actually listening. And if you miss the mark, being able to, put that ego aside and step back, then that patient's going to trust you more too. And they're going to like your treatment better. You guys are on the same page.
Win-win-win.
Yes. All right. Let's cruise on to question number 2. So this one is titled Exploring and Validating Patient Concerns, Relation to Prescribing for Depression. So this one was by Ronald Epstein, and it's in the Annals of Family Medicine Journal from 2007. So we're looking at patients that are going to be prescribed depression medication. And your question is, in visits where there was low EVC, so EVC meaning exploring and validating concerns, the doctor's prescribed based on A, brand name medication, B, the patient's request for medication, or C, the patient's presenting symptoms. So in visits where there was low exploring and validating concerns, so as in the doctor did not really evaluate and validate the patient's concerns, how do you think the doctor prescribed? Did they just pick the first brand name medication? Did they choose whatever the patient wanted? Or did they look at the patient's presenting symptoms?
I feel like this could go either way because I mean I'm on antidepressants myself. And so I know that usually the first trial doesn't usually work of what upper medication they're on, but luckily mine did successfully. But I really feel like if you're not listening to the patient's concerns, and just prescribing just to write a pill, like, I mean, this is what some providers feel like a patient wants, but it's actually not. They're just
kind of blanket prescribing in that case.
Yeah.
All right, you guys got your answers? All right, let's see them. All right, we got A, and C. Okay, let's see where we're at here. You guys were all wrong.
I was hoping and praying I was wrong.
Yeah, right?
Well, but I thought this was super surprising too, though, is they just kind of whatever the patient said, they're like, yep, whatever. Like, let's try it. Patients had better outcomes when there was high of like the exploring and validating their concerns because they weren't just given the medication that the patient saw on TV, right? Where they're like, you know, I saw this is what I want. And in this case, the doctor is just writing, okay, that's what patient wanted to try. Anyway, just interesting topic.
That's interesting. Yeah, I feel like this could go a lot of different ways because in the way you respond to somebody coming in and saying, I want this medication, I know this would help me. The way you do could go in a lot of directions if you don't validate their concern. You know, even if you don't agree with what you know, like say at the end, you know, like, I don't want to give them that. I don't think that would work for them. How do you, alleviate the concern? You have to go down a whole route to build their trust.
Yeah.
To have them listening.
Without just saying, no, it won't.
I mean, that happened to me. Not really as medication, but like when I was having my first son and I went in and I told them I wanted an unmedicated birth and he laughed at me.
Ah.
Yeah.
I had similar. I said, like, I don't want to give birth on my back. And the lady said, oh, well, that's the only way I'll deliver. I was like,
yeah. I was like, okay. But yeah, I was like, I'm done listening to you now.
And yes, I found a different provider. How about you?
Yeah, I went through quite a few until I couldn't go to anymore. And I was stuck because of how far along I was.
Oh, yeah. That happens.
But yes, no, this is a tough one because you want to make sure you're advocating for what their needs are and listening.
Yes.
And directing them correctly. So you're not just giving them something that's not going to work. Maybe it's not. Yeah. So that's a good question.
Yeah. Let's check out number 3. So the title of this article is Shared Decision Making, a Model for Clinical Practice. It's by Glenn Elwin, and it was published in the Journal of General Internal Medicine in 2012. So in shared decision making, we're talking about doctor-patient shared decision making. Your question is, what makes for good shared decision making in a clinical practice in relation to the doctor-patient relationship? So A, building good relationships. B, respecting individual competence and interdependence of others. Or C, both A and B. So if I put that back, if that question goes back in the correct order, it would be in the patient-doctor relationships. What makes for good shared decision-making in a clinical setting? All right. Are you guys ready with answers? Okay. I see some yeses. So Dwayne has C, Amanda has C, Maria has C. All right. You guys redeemed yourself. That's good. Everybody got a point there. We're back to tied. Essentially, what they found was that this model rests on supporting a process of deliberation, having choice talk, so discussing with the patient about their choices, option talk, like what options are actually on the table for treatment, and allowing the patient to be a part of that, And then decision making. So also, again, allowing the patient to be the decision maker and then supporting their decision. So if you have XYZ, PT, injection, surgery, and giving them all the information on each of those options, and then supporting the patient what they would choose. So as an example, I know Maria recently, her and I talked about a patient that it seems as though she was not involved in any of the decision making, which is extremely frustrating, not just for the advocate, but for the patient as well.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time on the phone yesterday, both just like flabbergasted at the result of surgery as your only option when we literally both, me and the patient, both looked and we found all these different options, and it was all, well, this is for lower back pain. It's not for what you have. And it is like, okay. How do you say that this is not where you need to be, but not say this is not where you need to be?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so this article really found that by including the patient in that, I feel like we would not have that frustration that your patient's currently dealing with. And it sounds as though I wasn't there, but it sounds as though there wasn't an option. It was just, this is the decision, take it or leave it. And, we'll schedule you in 6 weeks.
Called her to schedule. Yep. He very much feels backed up against a wall, and I'm going to try and help him.
Yeah.
Imagine a practice where patient engagement is seamless and unified. With trust-driven care, connect with patients across text, email, social media, and Google Business Chat, all on autopilot. Empower your team to step in effortlessly and engage in real time from anywhere. Say goodbye to multiple software and hello to a simplified practice and life. Trust-driven care is the all-in-one solution to save time, boost revenue, and build patient loyalty. Book your demo today and watch your schedule start to fill up. Now, back to the show.
Okay, so let's cruise on to question number 4, I believe is your true-false question. So we get a little reprieve there. That's question.
I know. I got it wrong.
Oh, no, they're not always easy, but, it's a 50-50 shot at least. This article title is Decision Aids for People Facing Health Treatment or Screening Decisions. So a decision aid. So it could mean kind of anything, but something that's going to help the patient make their decision. It's by Sean Stacy. It was published in the Cochrane Database for Systemic Reviews in 2017. Your question here is true or false? Compared to usual care, decision aids improve people's knowledge regarding options and reduce decisional conflict. So A, is that true? Or B, is that false? I feel as though just from being in medical offices, on and off throughout time, I feel like there are not a lot of like a piece of paper or a computer thing, or like there's not a lot of decision aids where you can like put, like compare two things together. Like I feel like you'd have to go home and Google that and like stick it together and be like, oh, I like this more than that.
Yeah.
But so I found this study to be interesting. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Dwayne has A, Amanda has A, Maria has A. So true, true, true. And that is correct. They found that decision aids reduce the proportion of undecided participants. So it really helped patients to make a decision on their treatment. And it appeared to have a positive effect on the patient clinician communication. So patients felt like they could talk to their doctors about it. I do think sometimes having a tangible or something on a wall or like something to look at while the doctor is explaining things really helps with that communication and helps a patient build trust.
Yeah, 100%. I think also it reduces that pressure to make a decision that you're like, oh, was this the right one? Because I feel, or if I don't know enough, I'm also like one of those people that needs to know all the details and information. So the more information someone could give me to make a decision and give me the pros and cons of each and have something tangible that I could look at, it would be a lot less stress in that decision making.
All right, let's jump on into number 5. It's another one of our throwback ones, but I like kind of throwing these in there because it's amazing how over 30 plus years that some of these principles are still the same. And sadly, a lot of doctors still don't follow them. So that's why we're here. That's literally why we're here, to
Yeah.
try to get the word out, to listen to your patients and how to do that effectively. Okay, so this article was named or titled Relations Between Physicians' Behaviors and Analog Patient Satisfaction, Recall, and Impressions. It was by D.L. Roeder, and it was published in the Medical Care Journal in 1987. And tell my husband how old he is by this article. And your question here was, it has been suggested that patients are poor judges of a doctor's competence. Why is that? So A, patients get their doctor information from Google prior to the visit. That's where they make their decision. They rely on the physician's socio-emotional behaviors to make a decision. Or C, they base their decision on office aesthetics and staff.
Well, first of all, Google was not a thing at being stuff.
You caught me.
In case anyone was going to choose A, there were not even computers around in 1987. I wasn't even born yet in May of 1987.
I was 11. Thank you. But there were no computers. It wasn't until high school though.
But I do think I will, I'll have to see if there's a very like comparable study to this. I'm sure there is, to see, because actually Dr. Josh and I were talking about how Google kind of impacts a patient's anxiety going to like a first visit
Oh, yeah.
or something like that, and looking at, you know, if the doctor has only 3-star reviews and they're like, oh, it's a 3-star doctor. Well, did you read the reviews? Was it about the staff? Was it about cleanliness at the office? Was it about the actual doctor? Like,
I know. You just look at
Was
the
it so-
stars. Yeah.
yeah, was it about billing? Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, you can nix question A or answer A. All right, are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what we got here. Okay, Dwayne's got B, Amanda's got B, and Maria's got C. Okay, and your answer is B. But I do think that sometimes, like, I know being in an office, it does not have to be totally new, updated, but when there are specific, like, stains on the floor or things that, like, could just be cleaned up that takes no money to fix.
Yeah.
I do think that sometimes makes you think, like, oh, is who I'm talking to really like a functioning member of society here? Are they going to be competent in what they know and what they do?
Yeah, I definitely think that matters. But I think back to like one of my old docs was just like a good old boy in Arkansas, and he was just everyone's best friend.
Awesome.
And he was good, but nobody really cared what he did treatment wise. He was your best friend, so you wanted to go see him. You know what I mean?
Oh,
See, that's where I think more of the behaviors is. It's like, yeah, everybody loves this guy. He's great. Go see him, regardless of what he does. Yeah.
Hopefully he was giving out super awesome care.
He was good too,
Good,
but
very
yeah.
that was
boy,
secondary. I mean, basically,
it was, yeah.
he was like, you're going to feel great with him. So,
Nobody asked what he does treatment wise. They're just like, he's awesome. He's the best. You're gonna love him. They didn't. Nobody was like, he's gonna adjust you better or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, so and you kind of answer this question in a different way than I was thinking of it too. Just because I'm thinking, or a poor judge of character, because a lot of times, if the doctor's not paying attention to you and they're looking at the computer, they're not, like, kind of the opposite of that. As a patient, you don't feel like you could trust them. They're not as, maybe they're not as competent because they're too nervous to talk to you. Maybe they don't know what they're doing. Or you can see that even vice versa, being like, they're so smart, they know absolutely everything, and they're like, too focused on that, too focused on you. So it's like, anyway, talk to your patients.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so this week we have a tie, which between Amanda and Dwayne. And this one was, it was a close one. Maria, you were just down by 1. Close. Okay, well, so this means that you guys get to have a super awesome question, and it is going to be, how tall is the Statue of Liberty?
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
It's this multiple choice.
It is not. Just guy a number.
No, you have to guess it.
Oh man.
Is that what it's?
So going back to last week, we had a how long is the Titanic?
Oh my god!
And both of our
Literally, Amanda and I had the same reaction. I was like, "Are you kidding me? I don't know."
it was like
They have a great judge of distance, and so this will be distinct.
Add him in a little.
Whatever.
well, if it helps at all, the Titanic is only like 830 something feet, and both of our docs, or they had like, what do you guys say, like 10,000 feet or something?
Okay. Well, I feel better.
Anyway, okay, Dwayne, what's your answer?
You said the Statue of Liberty, right?
Statue of
Oh, I was just
Liberty,
literally
1,200 feet, and Amanda, you have 1,000? Or
1800.
1,800, sorry, I couldn't see. Okay, Dwayne, you're closer. It was 305 feet.
Oh, amazing.
We just went a little overboard.
I got a patient walking in. I got to hop off.
All right,
We're gonna do the same. CPO.
All right, bye, Dwayne.
Boss. Oh my god.
Dwayne, here we go. That was 2 weeks in a row. He's gonna send his donation over to the chiropractic providers of Oklahoma. And I just wanted to thank our guests for another entertaining episode, and also our listeners for joining us on our learning journey. Hopefully you learned something along with us, and we'll like to see you back next week to join in more stimulating medical research on patient communication. All right, have a good one.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Trust Driven Trivia, brought to you by Trust Driven Care. Imagine a world where all your patient communication is in one place, seamless, effortless, and on autopilot. That's the power of Trust Driven Care. If you're ready to streamline your practice, check out trustdrivencare.com and see what's possible. Join us next week for more laughs, new guests, and fresh questions that turn medical research into pure fun. Trust Driven Trivia, making healthcare knowledge exciting, one question at a time.